All right, so today we're diving into some pretty deep waters. How can Christians engage with secular beliefs?
Especially those considered, well, a tad extreme.
Right, and the text we're looking at, it doesn't shy away from that.
Not at all. Engaging with secular beliefs, strengthening our faith, and winning souls for Christ. It's a mouthful.
It is. And it kind of feels like we're walking into a paradox here.
How so?
Well, you'd think, wouldn't you, that really digging into secular thought might actually shake your faith a bit,
Ah, I see.
not strengthen it. So what's the logic?
Well, it all comes down to perspective. It's about engaging with those different viewpoints, not just kind of soaking them in, swallowing them a whole. Think of it more like, how do they say, testing the steel of your own beliefs.
Yeah.
You're exposing them to the heat of these different ideas, these arguments. And what happens? They either kind of melt away or they come out stronger, more refined.
Okay, so less about agreeing with every single thing you hear and more about using those encounters to figure out what you actually believe and why.
Exactly. It's about making your faith your own, not just something you've inherited or something like that.
Yeah.
And when you have to really grapple with those tough questions, wrestle with doubt even.
Yeah,
It can actually make your faith feel more real, more lived in.
that's such a good point because it's easy to feel really secure in your beliefs when you're surrounded by, people who already agree with you,
Right.
but out there in the real world.
That's a different story.
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole approach so intriguing. It's like, how can we not just survive these encounters, but actually thrive in them?
And that's where the text brings in this really powerful analogy, the parable of the lost sheep.
Okay.
You know the one I mean?
Hmm.
Where the shepherd leaves the 99 to go find the one that wandered off.
Yeah, classic Sunday school story. But how does that apply to, like, talking to your atheist neighbor?
Or that friend who posts, let's just say, interesting things online.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so it's about shifting your perspective. The parable isn't just about, counting sheep. It's about the shepherd's deep love, his concern for even that one sheep that went astray. That sheep represents something precious, something worth going the extra mile for.
Okay.
And the text argues that we should view people who hold secular beliefs in a similar light.
So even if someone's beliefs seem, I don't know, totally off base, even harmful, we should still approach them with that same kind of like compassion, hope.
Exactly. Because just like that lost sheep, they might be searching for something. They might be searching for meaning, for truth.
Okay.
They might be going about it in a way that makes us uncomfortable, for sure, but that doesn't mean they're beyond reach.
And actually reminds me of this one friend I have. Well, let's just say he prides himself on being, the resident skeptic.
I know the type.
Oh, yeah. Loves a good debate, loves poking holes in, well, everything, really. And I'll admit, in the past, I used to kind of shy away from those conversations with him. It felt too risky, like it was just going to end in an argument.
But did you ever consider that maybe those arguments, those questions, were actually his way of searching for something more?
I never thought about it that way.
Really?
But now that you mention it, I mean, there were times when those conversations, as heated as they could get, they actually led to some pretty deep, honest reflections. Not necessarily about, like, changing each other's minds, but more about understanding where the other person was coming from.
And that's a crucial first step, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. But it's also where it gets really tricky.
What do you mean?
Well, because it's one thing to listen, to really try to understand, but how do you actually respond to those beliefs, especially when you, like, fundamentally disagree?
Well, that's where the text makes a really important distinction between engaging in dialogue and engaging in.
Combat.
Exactly. It's about approaching these conversations not with the goal of, winning, converting the other person,
All right.
but with genuine love and compassion.
Yeah.
Remember, we were just talking about the lost sheep. You don't drag a lost sheep back to the flock.
You guide it.
Exactly. Gently guide it back. And that gentleness, that respect, it all stems from recognizing the inherent dignity in every single person, no matter what they believe.
Okay, so it's about, like, treating the person, not just their beliefs,
Yeah.
right?
You got it?
It's funny, it sounds so simple when you put it like that.
It's simple, but simple doesn't always mean easy, right?
True.
It takes a conscious effort to remember that, especially when we're encountering beliefs that really challenge our deeply held values.
Which actually brings up another interesting point from the text. How do we prepare the next generation for these kinds of conversations? Because kids today, I mean, they're swimming in a sea of information, opinions.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do we equip them? How do we give them the tools to navigate all of that?
Well, it starts with creating that safe space for exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Even, and this is important, even doubt within our own homes.
Okay.
And it's not about shielding them from different perspectives, which, let's be honest, is pretty much impossible these days.
Right.
But it is about giving them the tools to critically examine all information.
So instead of just saying, because I said so, we need to be ready to explain the why behind our beliefs.
Exactly. Encourage that curiosity.
Yeah.
Ask questions, even, and this is going to sound scary to some people, even respectfully challenge our own beliefs or assumptions. That's how you build a resilient faith.
And isn't that what critical thinking is all about? It's not just accepting everything you're told. It's learning to evaluate information for yourself.
Exactly. And that goes for religious teachings just as much as anything else.
Okay.
Blind faith, it might sound pious on the surface, but it's not necessarily strong. A faith that's been tested, questioned, and then ultimately reaffirmed through that personal understanding.
Yeah.
That's where the real strength lies.
It's like, and I love this analogy, it's like giving kids the tools to build their own faith, brick by brick, not just handing them some pre-built structure and saying, don't touch.
What a fantastic analogy. And you know what? It highlights something that this text really emphasizes. This isn't just about personal growth.
It's not.
No, this is about impacting the world around us.
Okay, now that's an intriguing thought. So how does one person's approach to these conversations actually affect the bigger picture?
Well, think of it this way. Genuine dialogue, it can actually be a bridge between what seem to be opposing sides.
Okay.
When people feel heard, when they feel respected, even amidst disagreements, it opens the door to genuine connection, to understanding.
So instead of just like shouting from our separate corners, we find ways to build those bridges, maybe even discover some common ground.
You got it. And listen, even if we never fully agree on the really big things,
Right.
engaging in this way can lead to some unexpected commonalities, maybe a deeper appreciation for other perspectives.
And in a world that often feels increasingly polarized, I mean, that feels really important, wouldn't you say?
It's more important now than ever. And, you know, what I find particularly compelling is that the text actually suggests that this kind of engagement, it can actually make us more effective at sharing our own faith.
Really?
Yeah.
How so? It seems a little counterintuitive, right? It's like if you're too understanding, people might think that you're not as committed to your own belief.
I understand that concern. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But here's another way to think about it. When you approach these conversations with that genuine curiosity, with respect, it disarms people. It
Yeah.
shows them that you're not just trying to, you know, win them over, convert them. You're genuinely interested in them as individuals.
It's like you're saying, hey, I see you, I hear you, and even if we don't agree on everything, I respect you. And honestly, that kind of approach in today's world, that's incredibly disarming.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it can open doors that might have otherwise remained closed.
Precisely.
And through those open doors, who knows what kind of conversations, what kind of connections might come.
It's true. It's true. You're building a bridge, not a wall.
Exactly.
And maybe, just maybe, someone will feel drawn to cross that bridge. Not because they feel pressured or forced, but because they feel seen, heard, respected.
You know, it makes you think about all the times, at least for me, where I've kind of shied away from a conversation about faith, just out of fear. You know, like I'm going to say the wrong thing, push someone further away.
Yeah.
It's a common fear. I get it. But what if, instead of seeing these encounters as minefields, you know, to be avoided, we saw them as opportunities?
Opportunities for what? To, like, instantly convert someone?
Not necessarily. Think of it more as like planting seeds.
Okay.
Even if someone doesn't have a sudden dramatic change of heart right there on the spot, even if they walk away still holding different beliefs, you've planted a seed. You've shown them something.
What's that?
That it's possible to have these conversations with respect, with empathy, heck, even with a little bit of humor thrown in.
And that people of faith, we're not always trying to win an argument or, like, force our beliefs on others. Right. We can be thoughtful, we can be open-minded, and we can genuinely want to understand where someone else is coming from. And honestly, that in itself speaks volumes. It might not change the world overnight, but it can, you know, start to chip away at those walls of division, create some space for connection.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see. But in this case, it's more like, be the conversation you want to have.
I love that. It puts the power back in our hands, doesn't it? We don't have to wait around for someone else to create that space for understanding. We can start doing it ourselves, right here, right now, one conversation at a time.
Well said, well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, Little something to ponder. Have you ever had a conversation with someone whose beliefs were just totally different from your own? What did you learn from that? Did it challenge your own beliefs? Did it open your eyes to a new perspective? We'd love to hear about it. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep those conversations going, and remember, even in the midst of disagreements, there's always room for a little understanding, maybe even a little grace.